Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the No More Perfect podcast.
Today, we are going to talk about a challenge that we had no idea that we were going to face.
Yeah.
I did not read about it in the parenting fine print.
Yeah, no kidding. And I would say most of us that have dealt with a child who has life-controlling problems, mental illness, addiction, we would say we didn't sign up for it.
Right.
And we certainly have felt that way. And this isn't, here in the No More Perfect podcast world, you have heard me occasionally refer to this in our lives, but we've never done a full episode. And so we thought, you know what? There's other people that are dealing with this. And we have learned some lessons along the way. And so why not share some of those lessons?
Right. So we adopted when Nicolai was 9. He lived in Russia at the time.
Yep. But we weren't looking to adopt.
No, we were done at 4. I was totally done at 4.
We had 4 biological kids.
Beautiful kids. We love them. And then the Lord showed up.
and he literally made it evident that we had a little boy on the other side of the world.
Right.
Down to one God story after another God story after another God story.
Right.
And then even providing, it was a $36,000 adoption at that time. This was in 2003. But we didn't have that. We, as I often would have described ourselves at that point in time in our lives, we were Dave Ramsey flunkies. We had like $500 in a savings account. We did not have anything near $36,000.
No, we sure didn't.
And God provided every penny of that. And sometime we really need to just do a God story episode.
Oh.
Because we have had so many God stories. There's the adoption God stories. We've had other God stories, and we should do that sometime. But
that's a great idea.
I know. We really need to do that. But anyway, it was very evident that he was ours. And so Nicolai became a part of our family. And we have just, really, he'd like melded right into the family unit.
It was challenging, but it was rather seamless. And that really went along smoothly until puberty, which was a late puberty. So about 17. And at the age of 17, mental illness entered our home and our family. And that was when he had his first suicide attempt. Which, by the way, Nicolai has actually given us permission to share his story. Right.
So, anyway, we, I had never, ever experienced somebody trying to take their life.
You were present at the first time, or you?
Well, I was. Well, the very first thing that happened is he was in counseling, and the counselor, he revealed to the counselor he had made an attempt on his life over the weekend. And that, so she called us, and you weren't home. I was, and she said, you need to pick him up and take him directly to the emergency room. This is what he's revealed to me. And so we did. And that was the first hospitalization. I would say that was the first. It's been a while since I've counted them.
But there's been many.
I would say it's the first of well over 100 hospitalizations that have happened since he was 17, and he's now 32. So that
we need to camp on that for a minute.
Okay,
that's overwhelming, and I've been a part of this, but I'm thinking, I don't know if people really heard what you just said. I barely heard what you just said. And
I don't know that you and I have ever counted them up. I counted them up one time when I was having to provide information for a psychiatrist or something like that. But I haven't counted them recently, right? So in my mind, I was going, okay, well, I know what it was back then. And so then I was like computing. Well, it's on average 4 to 5 times a year. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a lot.
Right.
And so yeah, that was the beginning of a journey that we never anticipated that we would go on.
Right.
We ended up, Nicolai ended up living with my sister for a season, and she lived in Oklahoma at the time, and we were trying to get him into residential treatment.
Right.
And the residential treatment, he was needed to finish out his high school. He wasn't functioning in school well. He had missed more his senior year in high school than he had attended because he'd been in and out of the hospital. And
we had found out that there was some help.
There was some finances available, but the reality was the school system didn't want to deal with that because virtually he was almost out of their hair.
Right. They just wanted to be done.
Yeah.
So that was.
And so we were kind of fighting for the money that was available for kids to be placed in residential treatment for their education. It didn't end up working out. And so anyway, my sister said, she was single, and hey, what would you think if I actually was his residential treatment? And I said, man, I don't know. That would be really tough. And she was like, I know, but I have more, I have time and I have energy, and I don't have a family. And
really, she was connected to resources that we weren't connected to.
She was. She was also connected to she had a lot of people in her friend group from Russia.
It was crazy.
Which, so we were like, okay, that could make a good connection. And so he did. And everywhere that he goes, he does really, when I say goes, any type of a new living arrangement he has had over the last, I guess, however long it has been.
Yeah.
It's
17.
Yeah. It'll be almost 20 years. So over the last 19 years, he always does well for about 3 months. And so it was during that 3 months that he did great. And then at the 3-month mark, it starts to act out, just in a variety of ways, doesn't handle any type of leadership, is always bucking the rules, and then begins to get into addictive behaviors. And so eventually she had to kick him out and say there's...
which has really been a part of the pattern.
Every housing he's ever been in,
he's gotten kicked
out of.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why he's currently homeless. And so that is something I certainly never thought, would happen. And so eventually he had a girlfriend, and girlfriend got pregnant. And so baby came along, and there was no way that he or his girlfriend at the time were able to take care of another human being. Now she has since got rid of her life controlling issues, and she's a fantastic mother to children that she has had since that first little one. But it was evident that they weren't ready to take care of. And so my sister said, hey, I would love to adopt this baby.
Yeah. And
so she became a first-time mother, I think at the age of 49.
Yeah.
If I remember, she became her first-time mother at the age of 49. And she's a fantastic mother. Absolutely fantastic. But that means that we have a grandbaby niece. Tell me that life isn't complicated, right?
Right.
It's complicated.
But even as you're telling the story, Jill, and I know we'll get into this more, but boy, you just see how God has led all through this whole process, connecting to the right people, the right places.
It's his redemption. Like he redeems. He takes broken things and he redeems them in some way, or he makes a way. And yeah, you definitely see that.
Yeah.
And so, so that was probably one of the first things that we had to, outside of, we now had hospitalizations and we had addiction issues. We had getting kicked out of all housing. And so
the destruction of property and the abandonment of property, personal property, of property that was important, like from grandmother, granddad. And, I just remember how naive we were in the beginning.
Well, I think that, and I talked to other adoptive parents who adopted in the early 2000s, and particularly in the early 2000s, there was a big push for adoption, especially in the Christian community. But the reality is we didn't know back then what people know now about attachment. There was just so much we were not prepared for. And yes, our adoption agency made us go through classes. They were worthless. They were worthless. Honestly, the work that we do now with attachment and helping people understand their childhoods has helped us understand him more than anything.
Right. Well, and I think the irony is that a lot of times we're coaching couples, and before long, many times they're unfolding a story of a tragedy or a trauma with their child, whether it's adopted or biological. And man,
so there's many of us out there that are walking through something that we didn't sign up for. We didn't feel like we signed up for. Right. And so for, it gets really difficult, because when you have a child who has life controlling problems, you want to do everything you can to help them. But the reality is you can't want it more than they do. And that's really where that was the hardest lesson that I think we had to recognize.
Right. I think for me, I'm going to say naive, that I kept thinking that it was behavior, and I kept thinking that it was choice. But as we navigated this and have really, you were quicker to put your mind around that this is mental illness, and I wasn't as quick.
Right. And so what I will say, and we find this with many people that we work with, is it caused conflict in our marriage.
Oh, big time. It caused conflict in our family because we weren't really handling what we needed to handle. And the problem was we didn't know what to handle.
Well, and it was, I was starting to realize and recognize that this was something more than just bad behavior. And now we know that what we actually are dealing with is fetal alcohol syndrome. That is, for at least for our son, he was, which isn't uncommon for a child that is born in Russia. And even though we were told there was no alcohol in the mother's history, there's no way that there wasn't. I mean, and fetal alcohol syndrome, you deal with, there's no cause and effect. There's no cause and effect. So there's, if I do, that's what parenting is all about, is if I do X, then Y is going to happen in a good way. Or if I do A, then B is going to happen in a bad way.
Right.
And there's just a huge disconnect.
He can't, and there's no connecting the dots to, okay, I did this in the past.
Right. And I'm going to learn from it.
Right.
No, there's also no impulse control.
which is part of the reason he's kicked out of every place that he has ever been a part of. And so at the same time, he also refuses to get help.
Right.
Refuses any type of help. And so I will never forget, I would say this was probably the biggest lesson in our journey. I was due to speak in Atlanta, Georgia. This was many years ago, maybe 14 years ago, maybe something like that. Probably 5 years into our journey. So that would be about right. And when I was going to be in Atlanta a few days earlier than the event, and I was to meet our friend Mara Lee. I was to have coffee with her or dinner with her. And Mara Lee used to live in our town of Normal, Illinois, but she had moved down to Atlanta, Georgia, and we just loosely stayed in touch. But I was to have dinner with her. Well, that trip I ended up getting delayed because our son had an overdose. And I mean, this was probably at that time overdose number 5, maybe. And so I remember I delayed my travel by at least 24 hours. And then I had to reschedule my dinner with her. And when I got down there and she and I were talking, I found out that she had walked through something very similar. And I didn't know that. I didn't know her back then when she was dealing with that in her life. I knew her in her later years. And so I told her, you know, I think I made the statement. And if you are a parent with a child with life controlling problems, you'll understand this. I said, Marilee, it feels like he hijacks our life all the time.
Right.
And she said, I do understand that. And she proceeded to share with me her journey and her story. And I had, you know, a window into somebody who was years ahead of me, had some huge wisdom. And when she finished sharing her story, she said, "Can I give you some wisdom?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Well, I'd like to introduce you to a concept that I had to learn." And so she said, "The next time that this happens," and she said, "Of course, you and I both are going to pray that it doesn't happen again. But the reality is it might. So the next time that this happens, I want to encourage you to go to the hospital. I want you to tell him that you love him. I want you to give him a kiss on the forehead. And I want you to pray over him. And then I want you to walk out the door and go back to your life." And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, how mean. Like, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that. But I later learned that there's actually a name for that in the addiction world.
Right. To lovingly detach. And so it's not that you detach from the person, but you detach from their problems and their
problems are their problems.
Right.
They're not your problems.
Right. Because up to this point, we had been the rescuer. We'd been the cleaner up.
Well, I think that might be a little much. When he was 17 and 18 and 19, yes, we were. At that point, we were still, though, I don't think we were cleaning up his messes, but we were definitely very present when he would go off the deep end.
Right.
And so the thought of not being present, I equated that with not loving him. But in time, I mean, her words reverberated in my head over and over again. And I began to realize, and then I don't even remember how, I was online and I
read about this concept of lovingly detaching. And I went, that's what Marilee was trying to explain to me. And that really, then I began to realize, okay, this is something that has a lot of value, because the reality is we wanted it more than he did. And we were working harder than he was.
Right.
And so we had to lovingly detach.
And that was exhausting. And it was really creating conflict, because we're working hard, but we really weren't in sync together until we started to, when instead of fixing it or helping with it, we stopped and said, what do we need before really what does he need?
Well, and even what does he need? He needs to own his own behavior and have no distraction from owning his own behavior. And so that, that's really what lovingly detaching also does, is you get out of the way. And that's, and so, so we're now, many years down the road, and we have learned that this is the role. So let me state again. You're not detaching from the person. You are detaching from their problems. So what does that mean?
Right.
We still have relationship with him. It's a very, I'm going to be honest, it's a distant relationship. It is, I text with him probably daily. So, but as far as seeing him on a regular basis, we connect when we need to get something to him. When we need to celebrate a birthday, we always celebrate his birthday. But he lives he lives homeless. Sometimes he's in homeless shelters. Sometimes he's in a tent somewhere. Sometimes he's sleeping on somebody's couch. It became evident for a while. He would occasionally stay at our house, and it just became evident that wasn't healthy for us.
No.
He would be up all hours of the night, and we're like, that's not the way that our house works. And so we stopped doing that quite a few years ago, which is hard, knowing that we have bedrooms and he's on the street. But he's on the street because of his what he chooses to not get help for. And so, but when he gets in trouble with the law, which happens quite often, we are detached from that. We are not paying for a lawyer. We never have paid for a lawyer. But we're not running interference on it. In fact, that is one of the biggest things. When you help someone do something they can do themselves, that's when you enable. Now, there are some things Nicolai can't do. And one of those would be he can't manage money. He can't manage money.
He burns through money.
Yeah, you get a paycheck, it's gone in one day. And so several years ago, he actually got disability. And the disability, the determination for disability required that he had a payee. And so I am his payee.
And that's why you have daily conversations.
It is, because I send him a very small amount of money every day so he can go to McDonald's and get, a cheeseburger.
Right.
Although he has all 3 meals a day, he usually has at a homeless shelter here in town, which I'm grateful for. But that has, honestly, managing his money has been probably one of the better connecting points. I have to recognize, I can't control when I give him his $15 a day. I can't control what he does with it.
No.
And so you have to be hands off, and you have to let that go. And that is where faith comes in. That is where you just go, Lord,
you love him more than I do. And I have to trust that. And I trust that even God's heart is broken because he's not living out what he created him for.
Right.
Right. But that doesn't mean that God doesn't love him and doesn't have, it isn't giving him opportunities. I tell you what, God's given him lots and lots of opportunities. Unfortunately, our son has burned most of the bridges for those opportunities.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that is a place where I just have to have hands off and recognize this is the role I can play in his life. We also did actually get guardianship of him 2 years ago, I guess it was. That was at the suggestion of he was in a medical facility for the chronically mentally ill.
And honestly, that was a sweet, sweet spot for him.
It was such a good place for him.
They helped manage his meals.
His meds. I mean, all of his disability went towards that, him staying there, minus like $150, I think it was, or something like that. But it was such a good environment. And one day, his nurse said to me, "Hey, are you aware that he could actually check himself out against medical advice?" And I said, "No, I wasn't aware of that," because he was actually locked down. Like he didn't have privileges to go outside of the facility. And I said, "No." And I said, "Well, golly, this has been such a good place for him. How could we make sure that didn't happen?" And she said, that would be guardianship. And immediately the whole Britney Spears thing came in my brain, right? Like I was just like, oh no, we're not getting into all of that. And she was like, you should at least check that out. And so we did. We actually talked to a lawyer who specialized in guardianship. And he really helped us to understand, A, we're not responsible for his behavior. B, that doesn't mean we're physically a guardian of him.
Right.
It means that we are a guardian of him financially and medically. And so in essence, what that did is, and the third reason is it also keeps him from getting a driver's license.
Right.
And at this point, unless things change in his life, he has no business being behind the wheel of a car.
Totally.
He was for years. He wrecked many cars. We're amazed he didn't kill someone in the midst of that. And so he doesn't ever need to be driving. He does not have the emotional maturity to be able to drive.
No.
And so, so guardianship would, he couldn't get a license without our permission. And so there were no issues when guardianship was filed. There were no issues. In fact, the judge that ruled on it,
there's another moment where
said
another
God story.
Yeah.
And she was like, I have, and we remembered way back with his very first hospitalization, he would not, he could never calm down. I can't remember the language in there, but he can never regulate. And so they actually
wouldn't commit to self-safety or self-security.
And eventually they actually sent him to the state mental health hospital. And so, she had been the judge that had actually ruled on that. So she'd gone back 18 years, 17 years, and which was amazing.
Right. She had the relationship from that side of things.
And she was like, this is a no-brainer.
Right.
Like, she's like, I've seen him in the system for, however many years. And so, he needs a guardian.
Yeah.
And so we do have guardianship. But bottom line, it makes sure. So one of the things that was happening is when somebody has to have a payee in Social Security disability, they get to choose who that payee is.
And they can change at will.
That's correct. And so he would choose sometimes his druggy friends to be a payee. And we actually alerted Social Security on that, and Social Security did nothing.
No.
But when we became guardians, then we became I was actually already his payee before that. I had been his payee, and but now there was always the fear that maybe he would try to change it, and he can't now. And if he's in a medical facility, then we call the shots. He doesn't, and so he can no longer sign him out against medical advice. Now, you might ask, how in the world did he become homeless when he was living in a fantastic place? Yeah,
we didn't.
We didn't realize
understand
that he could get kicked out of that place for
breaking the rules,
for poor behavior.
Yeah.
And so once again, losing every. I mean, I bet you, and I haven't added this up, but I bet you he's been in 40 different rentals, homes, facilities, and every single one of them he has been kicked out of. So
right. Yeah. Sometimes it's 3 months, sometimes it's less.
And sometimes it's a little more.
Yeah.
I think the longest he's ever stayed, he stayed somewhere for almost 2 years. It was in that one apartment that we helped him to get. Not co-sign, by the way. No co-signing. We do not do that.
Right.
But I managed paying the rent with his money because he was on disability at the time.
But there was a lot of effort on our part to help calm down
the neighbors or the management. Yeah. And that was back before we had fully lovingly detached.
Right.
So, there was a lot of effort on our part. So all of that to say that if you are dealing with a child with life controlling issues, we see you. We know how hard it is. We want to encourage you to resist the urge to rescue because your rescue steals the struggle from them. That's the words that my friend Brenda Yoder shares, and that you don't want to steal the struggle from your kids, no matter how old they are. They might be teenagers, they might be young adults, but do not steal the struggle.
And if you don't learn to lovingly detach, it does affect the other relationships in the family.
That's correct.
We saw that as really it became more obvious to us way back when he went to live with your sister, that we realized we had been robbed of that natural connection with our youngest son. And that began to open our eyes to
because we'd just been dealing with so much throughout high school.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And our youngest son was a good kid and kind of, he just kind of ran under the radar. And so when Nicolai went to live somewhere else, it was like, whew, now we realized how much we had not been able to connect with Austin. And so there is, just so that you understand, there's Nicolai does not join us at family gatherings. He does not join us at the holidays.
No.
That's just not an option for the choices, the life choices that he has. That's really hard. I have a family picture that hangs on our wall of all of the family, and it was probably taken in, I don't know, 2016, maybe 2017.
Yeah, maybe.
And it is probably the last family picture I will ever have of everybody together. Unless
he chooses to get the help that he needs.
Yeah.
Unless, I mean, it is possible, but he has to want it.
Mhm.
And he has to go after that. And that is not, at least currently, what's happening. So Mark and I always make sure that we
Mhm.
connect with him for the
Mhm.
holidays, but we do that separate. And
From the rest of the family.
And the brothers and sisters choose to have no relationship.
And Jill has a lot more interaction with him because she's his payee. I will text him on occasion, but he's really made it clear that he makes no effort to respond. He doesn't ever contact me unless he needs something. And that took a little bit to get used to. That was heartbreaking.
Well, and you know what was a big part of it for you is because in your own life journey, rejection has been a big part of your story.
Right.
And that reeked of rejection.
Mhm.
And you struggled with the disrespect of it all.
Mm-hmm.
But when you like accepted the reality of,
I had to work through the disappointment.
Yeah, that's good.
Because it wasn't rolling out. When you adopt a kid who's, you're lifting him out of just a tragedy, and you think, I'm going to help change his life. And he really has gone back to the very thing that we rescued him from. He's just in another country.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hugely disappointing. I had to grieve that and come to a place of accepting it, that it's not my fault.
Mm-hmm.
And we continue to try to provide the right direction,
Mm-hmm.
but not do the work.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a great way to describe
Mhm.
it. Point in the right direction when he asks, and occasionally he does ask. He rarely takes the advice, but he
Mhm.
occasionally does ask.
Yeah.
And so anyway, if that is you, we see you.
Right.
We have never done like Al-Anon, but we have heard fantastic things about it,
Mhm.
where you really come to understand some of these principles. I feel like I kind of got that, that beginning with my friend Marilee, and have kind of done that on my own to do a little bit of research and figure out what do you do to not enable? How do you lovingly detach?
I think too, from other author friends and people in our sphere, we have learned a lot from the right people at the right time.
Mm-hmm. I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think a big piece was too that I had to work through. Did I miss God? Did I try to make that adoption happen? And what I have to keep going back to is we were clear on the fact that God had set that up, had orchestrated that, had called us to it.
Oh,
And
you just can't deny all the God stories that happened.
right. I don't.
But, go ahead.
I don't. So I don't believe that we miss God. Where I stand today is in confident faith, and also the story's not over.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say. The story's not over yet.
No.
His story's not over yet. And we continue to pray that at some point he will take the help that he desperately needs.
Right.
And until then, we will do our best to love with boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Lots and lots of boundaries, and to recognize that those boundaries are not unloving. In fact, boundaries come from, Genesis 1 starts with boundaries.
Right.
Right? Like the book of Genesis with Adam and Eve, and
Mm-hmm. So boundaries really was God's idea from the beginning.
Yep, exactly. And so to recognize that actually is an act of love, and to, we will continue to seek. Honestly, sometimes we seek him
day by day to go, what do we do here? What's the best way to handle this? But we decided it was time to talk about it so that others who are walking through this know that they're not alone.
Right.
It's also super important when I share with people about lovingly detaching, most people have never heard of it. And I just really want people who are dealing with really difficult issues to learn how to do this. And lovingly detaching doesn't necessarily mean, that a person can't be at the holidays. That's a choice we've made because of the choices he continues to make.
I think every family has to bridge those decisions because we're all different.
And there's different circumstances that are playing out. Yep. Yeah.
But they'll resist what you know that you need to do to take care of yourself and the rest of the family. And that resistance has been control for maybe much of your experience. It definitely was in our experience, but we also realized that we couldn't steal the struggle. We had to trust the Lord in that.
And the hard part is it hasn't changed.
No.
Like the struggle hasn't changed. But it's his struggle.
Right.
It's really not ours anymore.
Yeah.
Does it still grieve me? Of course it still does. Does it make me sad? Of course it does. But I am no longer yanked around by it.
Right.
My emotions are not attached to it.
Neither are mine.
Yeah.
And they used to be.
Yep. And so that's when you know that you've really found freedom in the midst of something very, very difficult.
Yeah. So for many of you, maybe this is new and you haven't thought about it, and you may have questions. Ask those questions. We'd love to help.
Yeah. You always can email us through our website, especially if we can pray for you. If you are walking through something difficult like this and we can be a prayer partner for you, just drop your child's name and maybe age in an email. You don't even have to tell us the situation, and we commit that we will pray for them and be praying for you as well. And sometimes we also do coaching calls with couples who are going through this, or even individuals who just need to talk it out with someone.
Right.
So if we can be of help for you, we do individual coaching. Mark meets with men, I meet with women, and sometimes we've done couples coaching calls, not for the purpose of marriage, but for the purpose of navigating a situation like this as well. So we'll put a link to that, to our coaching, in our show notes for this as well. All right.
Cool.
Well, let's close in prayer.
Yeah, let me pray. Father, I pray for every listener. Lord, whoever this podcast touches, may you birth hope, birth confidence, birth courage, birth encouragement upon them. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.